Good morning. This is impromptu, and this is kind of like off my normal thing as far as posting videos, anyway. Not off my normal things as far as the stuff I do. This is Tony, also known as T Jinx on Instagram, Heal and Reveal on Facebook, and of course, if you're on here, it's Heal and Reveal Tony Jenkins on YouTube. Just come from out of the woods, something I like to do a lot of, and ran across some Horsemint, aka Spotted Bee Balm, aka Bergamo's Bud. The nomenclature for it, I'm sorry, the official name for it is Monarda Punctata. Say that 5 times fast. And I'll show you a quick glimpse of what I'm talking about right here. I love to see these in the wild. When you're driving by them, to me, when you're looking at them when you drive by, they kind of remind me of, some of these more exotic forms of cannabis that you see people growing with all the different shades of color in them. Um, Real useful. Horseman has a good ancient and traditional use amongst the natives, and probably even way more ancient than that. But we do know the natives here, the Native Americans, used to use it as a sweating tea when people had a real bad cold. The major oil inside of the horsemint, we'll just keep calling it horsemint. I like to call it spotted bee balm, but we'll just stick with horsemint for the day. The major oil inside of it is thymol, and that's THYMOL. And if you see that word, it should put you in the mind of the word thyme, which we call it thyme, THYME. It's the common spice that we'll use along with rosemary and thyme. But thyme, same thing. So that major oil has a pretty good documented use. It used to be used primarily as a vermifuge, or in other words, they used to use it to help drive parasitic parasites out your body in general. It's also used as an antiseptic, which is why I'm picking it today. It's also used as an antiseptic. Quick side note before we go into further, we all know a lot of things in nature get a demonization category from Western medicine. So this will be one of them where they'll tell you, be careful with this. If you get too much of it in you, it can be fatal. Too much of anything can be fatal. So while I'm not going to sit here and say that you can drink, say 40 leaves of this in a tea, be mindful of when people are fear mongering you, or when you should just actually exercise a little common sense. So traditionally, again, it was used as a make a sweating tea out of it. They will also use it for antiseptic. So a lot of your mouthwashes today commercially does have some thymol in it, which is going to be a derivative of either thyme itself or of one of the bergamos or oswegos or spotted bee balms, or in this case, horse mint. So let me see. Let me just read a little bit about it as far as its other uses. Let me see. So you can, okay, horse mint also has the highest thymol content of all the mints. It's more than an antiseptic, it's more than a mite killer, and it's more than a cough syrup ingredient, because a lot of cough syrups will also have horse mint in it too. As a depressant, it is one of the most commonly abused substances amongst anesthesiologists and nurses. And there's a little note about it that if thymol was discovered today, it would be a prescription drug. So that should kind of tell you right there that there's a lot of pharmaceutical companies that are probably upset that they didn't get their hands on this and put us under some more addictions. So neither here nor there. But it has a lot of uses. So it again, it's used as a depressant, so it will suppress the nervous system to an extent. So you can use it for anesthetics. It does have on some level some anti-inflammatory notions to it. Um, let's see, anti-inflammatory, antibacterial, antiseptic, anesthetic, antifungal. So you got a lot of antis from this one little plant right here. There's many ways you can do it. What I'm going to do primarily today is make a tincture. So you start out with your jar. A lot of people have different ways, and always defer to what resonates for you. Never be afraid to go against somebody's recipe, because you have to realize that somebody had to do something different to create a recipe in the first place. So you'll see some people who say, "Oh, you got to dry your herb first. You got to dry your herb first." To me, the resonance that I have with nature, there's been a couple of them that say, "Yeah, dry me first." Intuitively, I'll get the notion that I need to dry something first. But with horse mint, and as many times as I made tinctures out of it, has never given me the notion that it needs to be dried. It's like the components are stronger when they're alive. When things get into the dried phase, there is less of a energetic flow in the plant. So for me, when I wildcraft, pick stuff from out of the wild, I'll make sure I got as many of the bugs as I can off of it. But I'm not going to get into extensive washing unless I know it has been treated by something that it needs to be washed off of. If it's been like well hidden within the canopy of the wood lines, and there's a bunch of pines and oaks and stuff that have been sheltering it, I'm good. If it's sitting on the side of the road, first of all, you need to be careful about the side of the road anyway. If you're anywhere near a major sewer line or sewer system, then you have to remember that the roots of the plant, and that's any plant, are going to absorb from the ground. What's running in the water in the ground will be absorbed by the ground. So you don't want to pick wild plants from around the edges of the road or near sewer systems or ditches. Very, 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 very careful about where you pick herbs from. So again, today I'm going to make primarily a tincture, but you don't have to just stop at a tincture. And when I say tincture, I'm just going to take this herb and I'm going to put it in this jar, fill it to at least 2/3 of the way full, and then I'm going to add a preservative, I should say. In this case, I'm using 190 proof alcohol. As long as it's at least 80 proof and above, then you can start macerating the herb. And what I mean by macerating it, the alcohol will start to break the herb itself down into its chemical components. So you want something that is going to be strong enough to break it down. Some people use vinegar. Some people use, apple cider vinegar. Some people use just regular water and hope that that'll get it. And then in some cases, some people will use a additional item such as glycerin, vegetable glycerin. I'll use vegetable glycerin in my final phases because when you have already prepared the tincture, say from the alcohol preparation, it's still going to be super strong and it's going to be almost like taking a drink. It's just, you got herbal medicine mixed into your drink. So if you're dealing with, like, say, making this into a cough syrup and you want to give it to a child, you can fill your final tincture bottle, the one that you're going to use as your delivery system. I could fill it with the finished product of the tincture to about 2/3, right around 3/4, and then I could take that vegetable glycerin and fill it the rest of the way. Mix it together, and then that sweetens it. It's not going to take the alcohol content out of it, but it's going to mask it to where it's now palatable for younger children. You look at most of your cough syrup anyway; most of them are tinctures that they just made sweeter. They just put some sweetener in it, such as high fructose corn syrup in some cases, or honeys. Not going to ramble too much about that. So there's different ways to do that. Tincture, fill the mason jar with 2/3 of the product. Fill it the rest of the way with alcohol if you want it to be pure alcohol. If you don't want to just use strictly alcohol, you could fill it. You could fill the mason jar 2/3 with the product, another quarter of the way with alcohol, and then top it off with distilled water or purified water, whatever is going to be drinkable water. In this case, what I intended to do was I'm mixing gemstone medicine with herbal medicine. This is a kidney elixir that I made a couple of years ago, and it's the mother essence, so it's still in preservation. This is basically water that was vibrationally fixed in a bunch of gemstones. Gemstones such as red aventurine, nephrite, which is a form of jade, citrine, rose quartz, quartz itself, hematite, dragonskin jasper, and aquamarine. I did enough research on them, and I prepared them in a method to where the toxicities of the gemstones did not affect the water. If the gemstones were toxic, I did not place them directly in the water. If they were not toxic, then they went in the water. So I combined the indirect method, which if you were taking my gemstone and crystal course, or if you have taken my gemstone and crystal course, then you're aware of this. I put the ones in under the direct method. The ones that had toxicity components, I did indirect and also crystal gritting. Because some of the ones that were toxic still had water warnings too, where you don't want to leave them in water. I infused this water for 24 hours. Standard is 6 to 8, but I'm somewhat a perfectionist when I try and do my medicine because I do it from intuition. So I infused mine for 24 hours, and then after I finished infusing the water, I put it into this jar, which I filled it halfway with the water, and then the other halfway with 190 proof Everclear. That will vibrationally fix the gemstone infusion that you had. That made this the mother essence. So that's why it's still potent and still here. If I pulled this open and was to take a drink, I'd be drunk in about 2 minutes. But I'm not going to do that. So what I'm getting at is that I'm going to make a herbal mixture um, with the spotted bee balm, which has the thymol as the main component, and because it has some implications of usage around the world as a form of a tonic. So it's good with not only on lower levels, it's good with kidney and liver, but it's good for colds and flus and stuff like that. But it has a lot of uses towards women's issues, cramps and things like that. And in my experience, if you can keep the kidney and liver system running pretty flush and clean, and that ties down into your urinary system, you can alleviate a lot of women's problems. So I'm combining medicine, and I'm going wild card like how I'm normally known to do anyway, and I'm not giving a shit who don't understand it because this is what I do. So what I want to do is do that for one thing. But another way that you could use this is like, say you had an oil. Say you like, just say sunflower oil. You're just using some kind of oil that you want to use as a body rub. If you have a lot of inflammation in your body, or you have even if you have cramps, you could fill an oil dispenser with the roll on top. You could fill it with, like, say 2/3 of the oil, and then put some spotted bee balm in there and infuse it that way. And then eventually, I'm not going to say the exact timeline. It may take up to a couple of weeks, depending on the strength of the herb, how much thymol is actually left in there. You could infuse it into this roller, and when you hit cramp points, you can just rub it around where your cramp points is, or at least up and below around the kidney area, and just rub it there, and it may infuse through your skin that way and alleviate the cramps. So there's other ways to do it. You could do it that way. You can infuse an oil. You could again take this tincture bottle, and you could fill it with honey, molasses. Molasses has so much healing that people don't understand. I advise you to do some research on molasses. It's a good folk medicine, but it's still an ass kicker. So it's still on the shelf. So evidently it's got some uses to it. Or you could mix the honey and molasses together and make a good dropper bottle. Fill it probably, say, 2/3 of the way with the molasses and honey, and then push you some buds in there, some fresh flowers and leaves in there, and infuse it that way. Think about it like when you go to the store and you see honey and they be like clover honey. Okay, that means the bee was pollinating the clover flower. If you see bee balm honey, that means that bee has been using the pollen from the bee balm flower. So just put the whole bee balm in itself inside the tincture bottle, and then you're making a direct infusion that way. So you could use that as a sore throat adjuster. So if you're having a sore throat, or you're feeling like you're getting a lot of cough, you could just, after you infuse it in that tincture and that honey and molasses, just take you a good old dropper full and boop, pop it in there. That's another alternative to run around here trying to take a bunch of cough syrup, which again, in the tincture form, once you do that, you could actually use that. So I apologize for not being able to show you this. I need to get a better camera system. But basically, what I got here is, if you were watching on my Instagram story this morning, I was showing you where I was picking it. I pulled one little set branch, and it had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9 tops to it. One little small section. Did not, get out there and pull up a whole bunch like I'm finna go out here and make a mass industrial pot of medicine. One little small section, about the size of my hand, maybe a little bit bigger. 9 tops to it. Broke it down, and a medium-sized mason jar, and just slap them in there until you get them, 2/3 of the way full. I mean, you don't want to trick yourself. You do want to push them down in there. And what I'm using is basically the top 2/3 section of the plant itself. There is always some good medicinal healing in the root system, but the stems, the leaves, and definitely the flowers always are going to hold some good healing. So basically, I'm just pushing these down in here, and again, like I said, don't fool yourself into thinking that just because it's sticking out the top, that's full. It is volume related. So at that point, okay, I got that much in there. For me, I know if I was like, if this was my first time doing this, I would say probably go get some more because I want it volume filled. But I know what I'm doing, what as far as I'm trying to make, so this is sufficient. Sufficient. But you would want a little bit more volume, so that you could tell what you were doing. But this is sufficient. That one little hand of a branch that I picked from out there. So remember, I said I'm going to mix this with my existing kidney elixir and with the 190 proof. So at this point, I'm gonna go ahead and open my 190 proof, and I'm gonna try and get it to at least 2/3 of the way filled up with the Everclear. Some people will say do 50-50, the alcohol and the water. I tend to not like my medicine watered down. I'll do the watering down on the backside. Okay, so right there, that's roughly a little bit more than 2/3. If you never mess with Everclear, you could put some Hawaiian Punch in a cup and then pour a little bit of Everclear in there, and in about an hour you'll have Hawaiian Everclear. That's how strong it is. It will eat the shit out of anything. It is one of the most powerful emacerators there is. Okay, and see, now I know that my water was good. Being that this water has been aged, I will say that when you smell it, like, see, all I don't smell, it's not as strong as this smell, but I smell the Everclear in here. And it doesn't smell stale, and it doesn't smell like it's tainted. So therefore, to me, it's safe to use. You could use a dropper at this point, or a syringe, or you could just, take the risk of pouring. Boom. All right, so sorry I didn't get that on the screen, but I just basically went to the seal, or right there to the base of right there. You can go all the way up to the top, or you could, at this point, if I wanted to, if I felt like I needed to add something to get it all the way up here to the base of the seal, then I would just add distilled water, or in my case, I have Healing Springs water from God's Acre Healing Spring up in Blacksville, South Carolina. I would probably put that in there if I felt like I wanted to top it all the way up. Make sure you got a seal on your mason jar. Put it on, nice and tight, and then you're going to shake it, and you're going to put this in a cool, dry, dark place. It don't have to be totally dark, but you want it out of the light as much as possible. And I'm just going to shake this daily, if not a couple times a day. Within probably about 48 hours, it's already going to carry a different color. Depending on the amount of volatile oils and all that other stuff it's going to break down, the tincture either is going to be green, or it might be kind of like a brownish color. But either way it go, that Everclear will break down the chemicals in the plant, and it'll bring that thymol out, and it will start to make this from basically a mixture of herb and alcohol into a herbal medicine. You really don't want to mess with it until at least 2 weeks. I would not touch it before 2 weeks, but realistically, you don't want to start using it, if you can afford to, until it gets to between 4 and 6 weeks. The longer you let it sit, the more time that alcohol is going to have time to break down these components. I mean, as you can see, it's just basically sitting in here. Look at all these little faces in here. It's just breaking down the herb, and it'll keep tearing it down the longer you leave on it. You do want to, at that point, label it, even though it's pretty clear to see in the beginning stage. Okay, I can look at this and clearly tell that's bee balm. But you would want to label it. You want to date it. You want to put the known uses on it. You don't have to go as far as putting the scientific name on there, that Monarda, Punctata, and all that other stuff. You just need to know what it's for. Okay, this is spotted bee balm. I put it in here on 4 October. It's used for antibacterial, antiseptic, anesthetic, anti-inflammatory. Being that it has the kidney stuff in there, I'm also using it in the form of a tonic. One of the other things that I didn't say, you could also use the leaves. You can infuse it again into the oil. You can use it for a body rub on top of like what that was. But you can also infuse it with some bee pollen and a couple other herbs after you like make a tea out of the or an infusion, I should say. Say you took some of the leaf before you put it in there, and you made it into an infusion, which means you just heated it up in the form of a tea. Then you remove the plant product, and then you would just add like bee pollen and make it into a body cream. You could use it that way, and now that bee pollen will infuse around the infusion liquid that is going to be infused with the properties of the bee balm. and then you could use that as a body cream or a lotion. If you got like sore and aching joints, you could do that way. Or you could just take the plant itself. Say you got achy feet, you can heat up some hot water in a little foot tub and put the plant directly in there. First of all, and one thing I neglected to say is it's a very noticeable smell. It has a real minty smell to it. When you are out in the woods and you smell it, or just to hold in your hand, it's real minty smelling. So if you put that plant directly in that hot water and it's going to heat up the components in that plant, it's going to basically turn that water into a minty, soothing bath. Let it cool down enough, put your feet in there. You ain't even got to leave the plant in there with you. It'll leave it in there long enough toward that plant to leak into it. And then you could cool your feet off that way. So there's more than one way to use nature. And trust me, nature presents herself for our use and not our abuse. Kind of ticked off around here because this year we had an extremely excellent crop of elderberry and poke root around here. Two more of the demonized herbs around here. And the illustrious state of South Carolina decided to spray all of the sides of the roads and, of course, a little bit out to the wood line. So instead of us having an excess of elderberry that we probably could have had for our use, just in case we do get this bad cold and flu season that they're spraying over our heads, instead of us having more natural stuff to use, now we have to keep going to the store and either buying natural stuff under commercial prices or using unnatural stuff that is probably only going to mask your symptoms and make you need more unnatural medicine. Um, Learn what's around you. There's probably more healing in your neighborhood than there will be in anybody's Walgreens or Rite Aid or CVS or whatever the hell. So get out in nature, figure out what you have around nature, figure out how to use it through research and firsthand experience. Never take somebody else's word for what will work for you because we're all different, yet at the same time we're all the same and interconnected. Peace and wholeness.